Okay, let me paint the picture for you here. Maybe you're, driving home from somewhere you go on a vacation and you're like, I got to tell my spouse some big news. And I'm not sure how to do it. So you plan a vacation to do it and then you don't do it. And then you get home and life is just really loud. And you get to the point where you're like, I've got to tell them this news or else like I'm going to suffocate pretty much. And so you put the kids to bed and you sit down on the couch and your chest is heavy and neither one of you really knows what's about to happen. And you just unload everything on them. Hey everyone, welcome to the Grind Together podcast. We're the Grinders. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Matt. And on this podcast, we want to create opportunities for growth through real conversation.
Let's go.
This episode is going to be all about having hard conversations with your spouse. But truthfully, it's being honest and what honesty does for you in a relationship. And then we're going to look at both sides of it. Because the person that comes out with their truth usually feels free from a lot of the things that have been holding them back. But then there's the other side, and there's a lot of hurt that goes into it, right? So yeah, we're going to jump into that because it's part of our story. And we have noticed that the reason that we want to do this is so when this does happen, inevitably for couples, that they have someone that's in their corner.
For sure. The whole reasoning behind this episode, I was telling Matt, I think for us in our world lately, we've encountered a lot of these conversations with other couples. And truthfully, this is a hard place for me to go back to in our relationship. It's very hard for me to go back and feel those feelings because there is a part of me still that is I've moved on from them, but I almost blocked it completely out because it was such a big moment for me in our relationship. And there's a lot of fear going back to those places of those insecurities and things like that. But I kind of am in that stage right now again in my life, weirdly enough, of the insecurities and all of those things. Because if you know anything about healing or life as a human being, you go through cycles and you go through ups and downs. And I'm in kind of a down period right now with my self-appearance. And as dumb as that is, it's just that's reality and that's where it's at. But it brings out a lot of those insecurities when we talk about our story. And when I'm in the highs and I'm doing really good of yeah, I'm awesome. And I feel really good about myself. It's easy to have those conversations. But when I'm in a lower state, I'm oh gosh, I remember all those feelings and I'm in that stage right now. And so it's interesting having this conversation now. It's a little bit easier for me to go back, but it still is really scary for me because I don't like to feel that way. I don't like to feel my lower emotions. I never have. And so sitting in those, it gets me really uncomfortable.
Okay, cool. Well, let's take you back. So our story is that, I had been viewing porn our whole entire relationship. And it was eating at me truthfully from the inside out. And it had manifested in so many ways for me. And it unknowingly to Lauren had affected our relationship. Right. And she was thinking that it was other things, but we would fight consistently. And we were very, very shallow when it came to conversations. We wouldn't really talk. We were just going through the motions, really. It was go to work, raise the kids, but not really connect. And then we would have sex every once in a while. Right.
Yeah.
And so, it was really, really interesting to, I guess it's interesting to even sit here and say, okay, cool. We want to tell this story because we have to go back to this version of ourselves that we have moved on from. But yeah, so and that's the thing for me, I'm trying to tap into that person as well. So you as a listener can relate because it was hell for me. And I didn't want to talk and I didn't want to say anything. And there was no way in my mind that I was telling anyone. And so at the end of the day, when it came to the way that I felt towards my wife, it was it's better to hide everything rather than say anything. And what that did for me was just cause so much self-resentment. I lacked confidence. I didn't trust myself because I wasn't making the decisions that I needed to make to move forward in my life. And I was just staying stuck. But at the same time, like I had this coping device that made me feel really good whenever I wanted to. And I know that you as a listener can relate if you've ever been in this position too, whether that's like any addictive substance, right? It doesn't have to just be porn. It can be anything that we use. Like women use shopping, women like whatever it is. So I had this thing that I could hold on to, and I was never telling anybody until it finally just started eating at me, because we had started on this journey of like being open and honest with each other and kind of helping other people do the same. And we had started a podcast, right? We started this podcast that you're listening to. And we,
You actually told me before our first episode.
did I really?
You did. You told me in August. We're like at like a 3-year mark, I think. I think
Yeah.
you told me on like August 6th or something like that.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. I do have this story mixed up because, yeah, so I tell you, and then we started going to coaching.
Yeah, we
because of
started
it.
coaching
Anyway.
in September. Yep.
But I got to the point where I literally just had to tell her. And so going back to what the scene that you set, I literally had planned trips. I had booked trips to take you away from the kids, so that I could break this news to you on multiple occasions. And it was like my body just like my head screamed at me like, you're never going to tell her. Right. But my body was like, you have to. And so I had this like internal battle of what am I actually going to do? And it was so difficult. And I had booked like, I think it was like the second or third trip that I had intended on telling you over this year. And it didn't happen on that trip, but I came to the realization that like it had to happen when we got home. And so that's exactly what happened is that we got home. We put the kids to bed and I texted you and I said, hey, we need to talk. I need to tell you something. And I can only imagine what was going through your head. But, so like we got ready for bed, kids were down and everything. And then, you were out on the couch and I came out and sat next to you, or I guess sat like on opposite ends of the couch and spilled my guts to you. Right. And I told you why I was going through everything, what I had been going through, why our relationship was at the point where it was at, all of the internal battle that I had had with everything, the studying that I had done on why I was using it. Right. And it was a really, really difficult conversation, but I think for more than my side of the story, I want to hear yours, because like what you were saying is that like it was a very freeing experience for me. And I had to go into it for me, not for you.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that at the time because I was like, let's do this for our relationship because I don't want to get divorced. I don't want all these things, but I know that I can't stay the same way that we are right now. But now knowing it, I absolutely 1000% did it for me because I had to get over these things. And it was something that actually helped you as well.
Yeah. So my side, it was interesting. It's interesting to go back and to think, and I'm like getting emotional even thinking about it. Now I think just because when I go back to that version of myself and how lonely she felt and how like just absolutely lost I felt, I like just want to wrap her up in my arms and just be like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. Like if you could just fast forward, like everything's gonna be okay. I know right now your world feels like it's gonna crash down and like what do you even know? I remember just being like, is everything that I ever thought like a complete lie? And I know some people listening to this are like, oh my gosh, he just told you that he watched porn. And like, but for me in my world at that time, that was huge. That was such a big thing, right? That was me, like that was equivalent to you like cheating on me.
Well, that's the thing. I think that we talk about like porn now because we've been helping people with it, right?
Yeah.
So lightly, but at the time, like it's very heavy.
It was really heavy. And so regardless of whatever the information is that you receive, whether it's like pornography, like actual infidelity of like, you know, he has a girlfriend or whatever that is, or like he's been texting other people or whatever that is, like no matter what, when you have those feelings, like your feelings are very valid. It's not, and I remember thinking that at the time, like, well, it's just pornography. Like I need to take a chill. But for me, it was a really big deal. And so when you originally told me and we were on the couch and we talked about this before in like past episodes, watching you in that state, I was very, like empathetic. I
Yeah.
like hurt for you. I was just like, I couldn't not feel bad for you. Like I just like, it was really sad to watch you. I had never seen you like emote the way that you did. I had never seen you like share feelings the way that you did. And so for me, it wasn't about me at that time. Like
the
you
initial
telling
time
me
when I told
initially,
you.
it wasn't
Yeah.
about me. It was like, oh my gosh, he needed to tell me this. I didn't realize it was going on for so long. Yes, this had come up in our relationship before, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize like the severity of it in for you. And so I think I took an approach of like love and just kind of like, hey, like I'm here for you. I love you. It's all good. But I think that there was a very naive part of me that was like, oh, he told me and we're done with it.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen again and I'm not going to get hurt. And now that I know, he'll be super honest with me and he'll tell me and
Yeah.
and he's not going to hide anything and I'm good. Like now that I know that I'm good. And I think the hardest part for me.
Well, before we go there,
Yeah.
because I want to stay in like the actual, like how you reacted. And with the people that we've helped, it's almost uncanny how the feminine energy reacts when their spouse comes to them and emotes and actually wants to connect and actually wants to be honest. Right. So, I mean, like, why did you go to sympathy? Because what happened, or empathy? Because what happened that night was I spilled my guts and I shared everything.
We have a video clip that I didn't even know
And-
that we had that you found from our like security cameras.
But just so you know, like I was in the mindset of like, she's going to leave me. Like she's going to like straight up after I tell her she's going to stand up, walk out the door. We're done. Like that was my perception. And so that's what was eating at me for so long and why I didn't say anything for so long, because I was just like, I don't want to get divorced. I still love her. I want this relationship. Right. But I'm afraid that if I do tell her, she's leaving. And then I tell you, and I had zero expectation of how you were going to react other than the fact that like I had already gone to the worst case scenario. And I think that as men, we do that. I think that anybody as human beings, when we have really hard information to share, we always are worried. And this is where anxiety sets in. We're always worried about how the other party is going to react. And the fact that I went into this conversation just for me without any expectation of what you were going to do actually helped me so much. But I was so damn scared that you were just going to bounce. Right?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, like, I think a lot of it looking back is the connection aspect of it, of like, you were so open with me and so willing to answer my questions. And I mean, at the time, like you answered them and I think I was scared to ask a lot of them. And I don't think I was able to like ask.
Oh, I mean, in that conversation, you didn't ask a ton of questions.
I didn't. It took me a couple days.
Oh.
And I think to a fault, I'm very trusting. I'm very like, why do you smile?
Kinda.
I am. When it comes to like people that I've let into my like,
Oh, true.
like inner circle, I'm very trusting. I'm very like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's because I like to think of myself as that. Like I'm very like, okay, like I got you. Like I'm loyal. I've got you.
And you want others to
and
be
I
that
want
towards
others
you.
to do that. So to a fault, I'm very much like, if he told me and he told me everything, like, and we've talked about all this, it's gonna continue. Like he'll be open with me. He'll talk to me.
Wait, but like, why did you go to empathy though? Sorry, that was my question. I should have asked it. Like, why was that the reaction? Because I think that that's the biggest fear for people in actually saying something, is that like, I don't know how she's going to react, and that scares me. So I'm not going to say anything.
The very simple answer to that is because I love you. And so when somebody that you love is like sitting across from you, like in so much pain, and they're telling you all these things, and they're like, my life has been this like internal hell. For me, it was just like, oh my gosh, I don't want him to feel like this anymore. And so the only emotion that I had was just kind of like, it wasn't about me. I couldn't have it be about me in that moment because it was so much about you. And you let me into that very beautifully. And so I couldn't be mad at that time. I mean, not to like, I got mad and we'll talk about that, but like, I didn't even have time to process my feelings. in it during that time because I was so worried about you because I loved you and I didn't want you to feel the way that you were feeling. To watch you like break down in the way that you did, like I have never seen you to ever do that. And so that was like, whoa, like this is a lot.
Yeah. So stay on that night. Because that night, I think you did the same thing. Like you just stayed in my world. You didn't really go to how you felt about everything.
I mean, if I paint the perfect picture of like that night for people, and I don't think we've actually shared this like to this detail, like this much detail.
No, we haven't. Yeah.
We sat on the couch and we were sitting across from each other, and I was saying like, we have a video that you found just like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you were like, I forgot I had this. I didn't even know. And we have security cameras in our house, and one of them's in the family room. And so you had found a clip of the very last part of the conversation after you got done telling me, and I got up and came over and like literally like kind of held you and just like gave you a big hug.
You like
and,
sat on my lap and like you just like hugged me.
Yeah, I sat like by you and just like hugged you. And I remember for me, like I was just like, whoa, this was a lot, and like I don't even really know what's gonna come, but it was like just the presence of it. Now looking back, like obviously I didn't have this knowledge during that time.
Yeah.
But like if I was watching it as a movie, this is like my dialogue of it was like there was just a lot of presence in that moment of like, okay, like this is what's happening right now, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I don't really care what happened yesterday, but like this is what's going on right now, and like the love that I feel for you was huge. And you told me like during the conversation, you were like, you can ask any questions. And I promise I will be 100% honest. And I did have some questions for you. And I was like, well, have you like I asked a lot of questions. Like, I mean, other than porn, have you like taken it a like step further? Have there been like affairs outside of that? Have you hired anybody? Have you done like webcam girls? Have you done like, I had a lot of questions because I was so like, I need to know these actual things really fast before, because I'm feeling all this love and I'm feeling all this acceptance, and I'm okay right now. Like I think my world's probably going to crumble in a couple hours, but right now I'm okay. So I'm going to ask these questions and kind of get them out of the way. And as we kind of talked and as you were really open with me, that connection just grew and grew. We actually ended up having sex that night. And I think for me that it wasn't out of like, oh, I need to do this for him. That wasn't that. It was like very much, I was so connected to you during that time. And like there was so much energy and connection there that like, I just wanted to like connect with you that way, truthfully. Yeah. And
that I've had multiple conversations with multiple men about that. And it's that we're so scared to say something to our partner, but like truthfully, the feminine energy in your woman wants you to connect with them emotionally. And when you can connect with them emotionally and honestly, then this wall that you guys have put up in your relationship actually comes crumbling down, and you see what your relationship could actually be.
Yeah.
And so we're not saying that that's going to happen for everyone in this conversation. Like there will be times when it does go pretty badly, but what we do know is that like you have to step into being honest with your spouse.
Yeah.
And as you do that, like it sets you as the individual free from everything that's been holding you back. And then you just leave it up to the other person.
Yeah. So, I mean, like that night went great. And I think looking back on it, like,
well, you said it went great, but then we've also had the conversation of like the reason, cause I mean, like you even sent me like a picture of like yourself in lingerie, right? I remember that night that you like took like a selfie in the mirror and like sent it to me. And I'm like, what, why is she doing this? Like she should hate me right now.
Yeah. And
right?
I think like as the days went on, because like you told me, and then I felt like, I remember waking up the next morning and like my eyes were really puffy and I was just like, was that real? Like, did that really just happen? Hold on. I gotta like, and then that's when everything started to settle for me in my world, where it was like, okay, like, what does this mean now? He says he's going to be honest with me, but I don't want to ask. But like, I feel very betrayed. And like, so does he not really like me? So like all these questions started like coming up in my head. Am I not enough? You know, what could I be doing better?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want him to do this anymore because it makes me feel a certain way. So what do I need to change about myself? And I think that that's always the number one thing. And I've always gone back to that. Like even in the earlier times of our relationship, like when I would find like the first couple times I've like found porn on the computer or on your phone.
Yeah.
I always went instantly to that of like, what do I need to change about me so that you like me? And that's a shitty feeling. And I know that it doesn't stem directly from you. Like that is a lot of like my past stuff of like proving and wanting validation, especially from men and things like that. But of course I want your validation. And of course I want you to find me attractive. And of course I want you to like I said, you know, I've said in the last episodes, like I wanted you to lust over me. I wanted you to be like, God, I want her so bad. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, and I didn't feel like that during that time. And so for me, it was like, okay, I was like truthfully kind of just tiptoeing, like I got to be the perfect wife so that this doesn't happen again. So like, I'll wear the lingerie, I'll do whatever sex things you want me to do, and I'm going to put on a happy face, and I'm not going to let you see that I'm actually completely like being eaten and torn up inside until I completely burst, because you can only put on a show for so long. And
so you think that it is just that though, like because that happens on multiple occasions with the people that we coach, right? Like especially when infidelity comes around in any sorts, it's like, how can I prove myself to you so you're not wanting something else?
I think it is the fear of mine was I was so scared that it was going to happen again and that I was going to get hurt even more than I already was.
Yeah.
That I didn't want to provide you with another reason to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the reason because I already felt so much like I was the reason.
So you essentially stepped into somebody that you weren't.
No.
You're like,
and
I'll be this,
everything.
I'll be this slutty, whatever. I mean, insert the phrase, right?
Well, I just was like, I'll wear whatever he wants me to wear. Like
Yeah.
I will be this, like, I want to be the person that he looks at. I want to be the person that like, I don't want to give him any, like, I'm not going to say anything. Like I'm going to be like, truthfully, you talk about like perfect wife. Like I was like, how do I embody this perfect person of like, I'm not going to bitch at him. I'm not going to do anything. Like I'm going to be like picture perfect. Like he has no complaints about me so that there's no reason for him to do this. Like that's how my head went. Right. So like he gets sex whenever he wants. I'll wear whatever he wants. Like, and I like, I'm talking about it and I'm saying it and I'm like, I was like a slave, like truthfully, like mentally.
Interesting.
In my own head, like I became a slave to the thoughts that I had in my head of what I thought that you wanted. And it took me a little bit. And I had a few times where I was like, so I think it was like a couple nights after that, I like completely broke down crying. Like you weren't in the room and I like had to emote and get some feelings out. And I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And you came and sat on like the edge of the bed by me and you were just like, I don't know what to do. And I was just like, you can't do anything. Like you did hurt me. And like I have a note section in my phone that like I wrote a little like journal entry and I was just like, I don't know what to do. I feel so lost and I can't talk to anybody about it because it's your thing. And so I just kept it in and I didn't say anything. And I was like, I'm so alone. I don't know what to do. And so I masked it like we talked about. Right. And it took a little bit and you were like, I'll be so honest with you. And I like all these things. And then fast forward a couple weeks, like it was like in my head, I got to the anger part because it was like you told me and I was like, okay, so he's going to be honest with me now because he says he's going to be honest. And then we fast forward and I'm really sad and I'm doing everything I can to make sure that like everything's perfect.
Yeah.
But I'm a human being. So like, obviously it's not 100% perfect, but I'm trying so hard to be like, this is okay. I love you. Like, let's brush it under the rug. It's not a big deal, whatever. And then I like find out, I like ask, or I like see something on your phone of like, I can't remember if it was like porn or you were just like looking at like things. And I was like, you're fucking kidding me. Like, and that's when the anger set in.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, you asshole. Like, you're kidding me. Like, I have been so perfect. I've given you everything that you could ask for. I've done X, Y, and Z. I'm just angry now and you don't deserve this anymore. Like, you don't deserve it. Like, you don't deserve the kindness. You don't deserve the love. Like, screw you. You're just hurting me. And like, I'm so angry. And I was pissed. And I remember we were driving the other day and we like were coming and you were like, I didn't know there was a McDonald's right there. And I was like, I do, because I sat in that parking lot at McDonald's while you sent me stupid videos right after you told me. And I was so angry at you about how your brain works and all these things. And I remember watching those videos and just being like, you're fucking weak. Like, you're making up excuses. And I absolutely want to punch you in the face right now. Like, I was so angry.
Yeah.
So like, it's so funny because I was so loving. And so like, all is good. And then it was like, I had to feel all the emotions and I had to process everything so that I didn't like hold on to it. Right. Because before in the past, I had just held on to the anger part. Like, I had never gotten to the anger part. I had just gotten to like everything is okay. Life is going to be okay. I'm not going to talk about this. We're going to brush it under the rug.
Because if we get angry,
because if we get
worse,
angry, then he's going to leave, or he's going to cheat on me, or this is going to get worse, or then what? And so getting angry, like, there were multiple fights where I left and like got in the car and I was like, I need a break from you. Like, I don't want to talk to you. And I remember one specific drive I took after we had a really big fight because you were like, well, yeah, I watched porn again. And at least I told you when you asked. And I was like, I don't want to ask. Like, I don't want this to be a thing in our relationship. So like, I don't want to ask. I don't. And you were like, do you want me to like just tell you every time? And I'm like, no, I don't want you to do it. Like, this is so stupid. Right. And we had so many conversations like about like why and where and what kind and all of these things. Right. And like, I remember one specific drive I took, I was so angry because I was just like, that for me was like, what do I want to do now? Like, I felt like I was kind of more in control at that point where I was like, I feel like I'm a punching bag to this man. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm doing everything I can. I've tried everything. What do I do now? Like, now it's about me. Like, this is about me. Like, I am not okay. And it really forced me to look at a lot in my life, which I'm very grateful for now, because I don't think I could have gotten there had I not gotten to the point of anger and like complete pissed offness. I don't even know if that's the right word. Because I needed to feel that anger. I needed to feel how it felt to be angry. And I needed to actually go down the road of, what if we're not together? What does that look like? Do I want to deal with this with somebody else? What are my feelings around pornography? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until a coaching session that we had that I'm so, so grateful for. And I look back all the time on, where my beliefs got really, really, really challenged, where I got asked some really hard questions. And I was like, and I remember sitting in that session and I was pissed. And I was like, these are the dumbest questions ever. Why are you asking me these? I hate them.
Yeah.
And I wanted so badly to blame you for how I was feeling, because it was very like, you caused it to me, it was clearly, right? Mm-hmm. And sure, you caused it, air quotes, but you kind of just brought forth shit I was already dealing with to light. Yeah. And forced me to look at it, which is never fun. But that's the coolest part about relationships, is I would have never had that. I would have never got to see like, okay, so why do I seek your validation so much? And like, oh, maybe it's not just you. Maybe it's all these other men that I've had in my life. Mm-hmm. And how do I still do it now? And what do I actually really want in sex? And what do I find attractive? And do I really think pornography is bad? Yeah. And if I don't really think it's that bad, like if my brother or my best friend told me that they were watching it, what would I say to them? And why is it different now that it's you? Because now I'm involved. And I had to wrestle with those. And I had some really good like comebacks to them. And when everything was said and done, it came back to me. But I'm so grateful that I had somebody to talk to throughout those things, and somebody that wasn't family, because originally, the very first 2 times this happened, I went to family. Yeah. And with all the love in the world, I was told to just brush it under the rug. Yeah. It was like, it's not that big of a deal. It's all good. It could be totally worse. What you don't know is all good. Just let him be him. It's all good. And I was like, okay, that's what a good wife does. Right. But it was eating me inside. Well, that's the thing. When this time, when everything came out and I was like 100% honest with you, it was a couple of days. And then you finally came to me and you're like, listen,
you need to get help
I did.
because obviously this is something that you were dealing with. And you were like, and I need somebody to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, you said to me, you came to me and you spilled all your guts. You're like, I don't have anybody to talk to. I need somebody to talk to.
Yep.
And I was like, oh crap. Like she's going to go spill to her mom or and all the stuff. Cause like I hadn't known that you had told everybody before, which is totally fine. Like looking back now. Right. So yeah. You finding somebody for us to talk to was key, and we'll go into that. But going back to like my side of it, just going through all of this, right? Because there's people that use these vices like porn recreationally. But then there's people that use it like as a drug, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't even know any of this. And so this was the research that I was trying to do for myself, because I was like, I don't want this to be part of my reality, but like it has been my entire life. And especially now that I've come out to my wife, I don't want to have these conversations over and over again, because this is really hard. So like, let's figure out why I'm doing this, and let's figure out what remedies I need to take to be able to get over this.
Well,
right?
and one of the biggest things in our relationship was like, if you do this again, I'm gone.
And that
there were like hard ultimatums, right? And it was like, you should be somebody who doesn't do this. So why? And there was a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and like ultimatums, truthfully. Like I gave you so many like hard, like if you do this, I'm not here. If you do this, I'm leaving.
Which is so like outside looking in, so healthy for the individual.
And you can call it a boundary, I guess.
Yeah. To say like, I don't want to get hurt again, guys. Like, can you please just not do this? And if you do, like, I'm gone. Cause that's what happened to us as kids. And that's what our parents did. And that's what, you know what I mean? So it's like, I get that. I understand that. And so, and that happens more often than not when hard things come up in a relationship, where it's just like, if you ever do this, I'm done.
For sure.
Right. And so you actually have to test it.
Well, and it like keeps you safe. And like a lot of our clients have said to me like, well, Lauren, like where was the breaking point for you? Like when did all of a sudden your mindset shift? Like when did that wiring get like rewired? Right. And it's like, I don't know if it was one specific thing. I think it was a lot of things combined, but really questioning those beliefs for me. And really like wrestling with it. And it took me a long time. Like it probably took me a year to completely like, I would say rewrite like the pathways in my brain of like, okay, do I believe this? Okay, yes. Where I had to literally get to the point where it didn't matter if you were watching it or you weren't watching it. It didn't affect me. I didn't care. And it wasn't like I don't care, like a fuck you, I don't care. It was like it just like genuinely didn't affect me. It didn't affect how I felt about you. It didn't affect how I felt about myself. I didn't care. I didn't judge you. It was just kind of like, you do you, bro. And it was a huge eye-opening experience for me it was very freeing to finally just be like, I love you. I choose you. There's nobody else I want to be with. And so I'm okay. And I know that you love me. I do. To my core, I know that you love me. And I know that these things that, you know, you viewing pornography doesn't mean that you love me any less. You're dealing with your own shit, just like I am. You viewing it, like it's pornography's in the middle and you're dealing with your shit and I'm dealing with my shit. And it's just the thing that's like bringing everything to light. And for me, it was like, I really wanted to get to the point. And I remember when our coach told us like, the goal is to get to a point where he could view it every day and you just don't care. Right. Or like you just are to the point where you're like, it's your world and it doesn't affect me. But I still love you and I still choose to be here because I always have that choice, right? Yeah. And it's been so cool for me to not have that be something that causes those insecurities anymore. Like you are not the cause of any insecurity that I have anymore.
That's beautiful.
And it's so freeing. So freeing.
But it takes so much work to get there.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, we went through that pretty quick. And that's the thing. And and there's a couple like roadblocks that I want to just put out there for everybody that is dealing with this, because we'll just say this, like 83% of marriages go through some sort of sexual thing in their relationship, right?
Okay.
Whether that be like, we're going to talk about masturbation, porn, infidelity, abuse, right? Anything like that. And so you're not alone if this is you, or if like this story resonates with you. And that's what we want you to feel as number one, right? Number two would just be, understand when you do have this conversation, there shouldn't be anything, but like, if you have an expectation for an outcome, you're probably wrong when it comes to it. And then from the wife's point of view, like, it's okay to be mad, like you were saying, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to be mad. Like, get really mad when it comes to this, because it'll help you get over these things. But then also, when we were talking about you saying, if you do this again, then this, right? That's okay. Because that's naturally what we're going to want to do. Because like what you said, you want to keep yourself safe. And I would even say, I would literally say 8 out of 10 guys that I talk to about this particular conversation, their wife has said something similar to them. Like, if this comes up again, like, I can't do it anymore. Like, I'm done. Right. And here's the thing. More often than not, it will inevitably come up again, and you'll view it again, or like you'll outsource again, or you use the thing again, because you're trying to work through this. And this is a coping device you use just to mask something in your life.
Yeah.
But the thing is that as we stay honest in these conversations, we can actually connect with our spouse. And so even if they've said that, or even if you're the spouse that has said that, right? We want you to continually look at these guards that you put up, and are they really keeping you safe, or are they holding you back from your own self? But there's a lot more in that conversation that we could pull out. Too, so.
I think another thing for me that came up while you were talking is, like, during that time period of feeling like I needed to, like, quote unquote, perform for you.
Yeah.
If I could, like, shout anything from the rooftops, it's like, don't become a smaller version of yourself just because of what happened to you. You don't owe
You don't have to change
anybody anything. You don't have to change. You don't have to do anything. And I think one of the biggest conversations that we have with people are like, I told my wife and everything was great. And like, now our sex life is amazing. And I'm like over here, like rocking back and forth, like, fuck, like I know where she's at.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's you, I just want you to know, like, you don't have to have sex if you don't want to. You don't have to wear things that you don't want to. You don't need to change your hair color. You don't need to lose weight. You don't need to do anything. You don't. It like eats me up inside because I know that feeling. I know what it feels like to not feel good enough. And to compare yourself to very unrealistic things. And I will tell you that if you continue to do that, you are going to absolutely suffocate. Because it has nothing to do with how that woman looks or what she's doing. And way more to do with what's going on the inside world of your husbands. So don't take that on. It sucks. And it's not something that you need to take on.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
And from my point of view, now looking back, having gone through all of this, like, it really sucks that I caused all this hurt in our relationship. Even though I had gone through my own, like, hell for so long.
I'm so grateful for it.
Going back. But that's what I was getting at, is that, like, the fact that it did happen, the fact that we were able to communicate, the fact that we were able to work through things and really, really, really get accountable for what was going on for me, you getting accountable for what was going on for you, and then reaching out and getting help. Like, that's the only reason that we are now our truest selves. That's the only reason that we are able to help other people through this. Like, without these things, we always say your message, And without these things, we wouldn't be who we are today.
Yeah. And I feel like there are some key things that you and I did during that process that like we've given to our clients. Like, here's like 5 things that have really helped us throughout this transition. And I'll make those available
Well,
for
that's
you
the thing
guys.
too. I even know, like, I have a method of being able to approach your spouse with these hard conversations. Like,
Yeah.
I can walk you through how to actually communicate it so that we're not putting all the blame and everybody on them, because that's common as well, where it's just like, you're not doing this and this is why I'm doing this. And,
Yeah.
So yeah, we have those resources available for you.
Yeah. If you're going through this, please reach out. I don't ever want anyone to feel like you're alone in this journey, especially if you just got some news like this, whether it's, you know, like, oh, I'm, you know, been viewing pornography, or, oh, I cheated, or whatever that is. I just want you to know that you have 2 people that have gone through it. And that's like the biggest thing that we've been talking about lately is like, we're just a couple just like you who have gone through some shit, and we're just teaching what we've learned because we wish that we would have had this available to us. I wish so badly that I had somebody that I could listen to. I wish so badly that I had somewhere to go to ask questions and to get resources. And because at the time I was literally clueless.
Yeah.
Like, I searched high and low and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to turn to. I was just like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
Yeah. That was amazing. I actually loved going back to our story. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I know it wasn't easy, but I appreciate it.
It was
Okay.
very good for me to do. I needed to do it. So thank you.
Yeah. Make sure you follow us at Grind Together Co. On TikTok and Instagram. We have some fun things coming up, and we can't wait for next week.
Love you guys.